guy who's really turned into a much better passer as his career has gone. One of the things you've noticed in his game is he just sees the defense better than he did as a young player. And I think if his usage increases on a team like the Nets, he might play a little bit less. Maybe he's going to play only 32 minutes versus 33 last year. I think he's going to be phenomenal, MVP type guy. And I think it's hard to overstate how much better he is than D'Angelo Russell. As much as I like Russell, he's just a different caliber of player. But he's also going to be paired with Karis LeVert, Jason, who I think people kind of forget how well he played at the beginning of last year before he tailed off. And I think LeVert has a very real chance to get into a few conversations that we'll touch on at the end of this show. But I think he's going to be an all-star, Jason. I just think he has a great situation, a guy who's going to be happy to share the ball with him. And I think in general, he's just going to have the opportunity this year, Jason. I mean, he's going to get the ball a lot. I mean, do you think it's crazy for me to say that Karis LeVert's going to be an all-star this season?
Absolutely not. I mean, listen, I remember when the Nets drafted LeVert, when he was falling off of people's draft boards entirely, Marks, just got the job and went in for that interview with him and said, this is a Brooklyn net right there. I mean, Karis LeVert is the poster child of Brooklyn's rebuild. They get him, late in the first round 3 years ago, and they let him come back slowly from the foot surgeries he had while he was at college. Remember, his nickname at Michigan was Baby Durant. Struck up a friendship with KD, and I think LeVert is a big reason why Kevin Durant wanted to sign in Brooklyn, aside from being able to go with Kyrie and because the Brooklyn has such a good medical staff. I don't think you're crazy at all. I think Karis could very well become an all-star in the East, especially if the Nets are winning. I think you could see both Kyrie and LeVert on the Eastern Conference All-Star team. Mm-hmm. It's just all dependent on his health, but he's looked great in the preseason. He's touched up his shot. He's a slasher. He's a good defender. He's athletic. He's a leader. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I mean, I could sit here and sing Karis's praises all day because you really can't say anything bad about the kid. He got his money, a well-deserved contract extension, and now it's time for him to put a full season together and be that third star in a league that is transformed from big threes to dynamic duos. LeVert could be the reason why the Nets have a big three when KD comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get in here and let's get to this team's ceiling, because I think people are going to be surprised about this, but I'm going to let you start with what you think the ceiling is for this team.
So, I mean, this is all on is KD playing versus KD not playing. I'm saying without KD, realistically, they could make it to the second round of the playoffs. Now, they could shock some people. If they're able to put a full season together, the big men play well, Prince plays well, Irving and LeVert do their thing, Dinwiddie does his thing, then could they advance farther? Absolutely. But I'm looking at this from a realistic perspective then, because I am all in on them in 2021 with a healthy Durant and winning this title. 2020, 2021 is Brooklyn's year. So I'm looking at this year as house money. It's gravy. Play well, gel. You have your core locked up for at least the next 3 to 4 years outside of Joe Harris, who I think they'll re-sign. I'm all in on them next year. So I'm going to say my ceiling is second round.
I think I'm going to stick with you on the second round, but I am very tempted to say this could be a team that could get even past the second round and into conference finals. And the reason why I say that is I think it's going to depend a lot on matchups. The reason I think they're going to struggle is I think they're going to be the third, maybe they'll be the fourth seed. I think if they play the Sixers, they're in deep trouble. I think that that's a terrible matchup for them. But I think with the Bucks without Brogdon, I think they would give the Bucks some trouble. And I could see them making that into a real series, even without Durant. I think this team is really good. And to me, one of the reasons why I like this team so much is I also just think that they're a very high floor team. I think even if Irving misses some time, Spencer Dinwiddie is right there to fill in. They have a team that can really withstand any injury. I don't see an injury that would cripple this team. They have a lot of depth. I really like the way they are. So I really feel like the worst case for this team is probably a 6 seed, something in that range, and maybe a first round exit. But I think they're a very high floor team. And if Durant comes back, I personally think that this could be a real title contender. I mean, if there was news partway through the season that the Nets could get Durant back, I might put a small wager on them for the title. There won't be news.
Mark's nipped that in the bud. I mean, the media is not going to be asking questions about KD. He'll come back when he's ready. But Another underrated piece of this team too is Garrett Temple. You mentioned them playing the Bucks. I think Temple was a huge pickup for them. If he could stay healthy, he'll be a huge contributor for them, kind of in that Damari Carroll type role that he had last year. He'll be playing all over the floor, and also a guy like David Nwaba, a very underrated defender. So I agree. I think this is a bona fide playoff team. Not saying that because I'm a fan. I've been through a lot. Let me have my due, people. I'm very excited for this team the next few years. I've been waiting a long time, and I know all Nets fans listening have as well. So, yeah, I think they're a bona fide playoff team. What their floor is losing in the first round.
Yeah, so let's get to the over-unders because this is one of my best bet teams. The Nets over-under is 44.5, and I'm not going to have any suspense here. I'm going over. I think this is a legitimate 50-win type team this year. I love the over. I would take the over even a couple wins higher than this, so I'm pretty far on the over on this one.
Oh, I'm definitely taking the over as well. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win 55 games, dude. But, they won 42 last year with this roster that came out of nowhere. You replace Russell with Irving. You get DeAndre Jordan replacing Ed Davis, the guy that was an all-star. Jared Allen's gotten bigger. I mean, take the over, folks. And that's not bias-based.
No, I mean, I think people are really sleeping on just how much better Kyrie Irving is over D'Angelo Russell. I think people saw the numbers from Russell and they think that those two are the same. I mean, D'Angelo Russell is one of the worst defenders in the league. Irving is not great, but he's average, and offensively, he's just on a different level than Russell is. So I agree with you. Bet the over. This is a team that I am going to guess we might not bet the over on, Jason, and that is the New York Knicks, who, as you put in the show notes, I think this just perfectly sums it up. The rebuild continues, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the part of the show that I hate. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, look, we have a lot of Knicks fans who listen to the show that kill me for saying that we're Nets homers and we don't give the Knicks enough credit. I mean, look, if the Knicks were in a good spot, do you really think that they wouldn't have gone out and signed a marquee free agent, at least one? The Knicks are just not ready right now. They struck out on a lot of the big time free agents. And now this firestorm with Kevin Durant going on Hot 97, which is a radio station in New York, and saying that the Knicks are not cool. And he's right. They're not cool right now. What have they done in the last few years that's cool? They gave up on Carmelo Anthony. They traded away their best player. They let an out-of-his-mind Phil Jackson run the team. They finally have a good coach in place in David Fizdale, but they're rebuilding. I mean, listen, no one thought the Nets were cool 2 years ago, and now they're sitting here looking real pretty. And if the Knicks continue to do the right thing where they have a couple pieces that they got in the draft, and I think they'll get a couple more, they have a couple of extra first-round picks coming their way, just keep building this thing. Now, what I think they should have done this offseason was taken their cap space and acquired some bad contracts with draft picks attached. But instead, they went out and they signed every power forward that was available. Another step, then, that's, guess what? Not cool. I mean, what do you think of the Knicks here heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wonder if Phil Jackson gave Scott Perry some like peyote and told him that the key to winning a title was signing power forwards, because it was remarkable how many power forwards they signed. I really like Julius Randle, and watching this team play a little in the preseason, it's pretty clear that Randle is a guy who's going to have some pretty good stats for this team, because they have no illusions that they have a real point guard. Sorry, Dennis Smith Jr., but they've clearly already figured out kind of where they're at. I mean, I think Randle will have a really nice season for them, but the rest of this team, it's just there's a lot of development. I was glad to see they let Frank Ntilikina, man, I'm struggling. Let him get some run in during the preseason. I hope that continues, because they do have some nice young pieces. I mean, Mitchell Robinson has shown flashes. Who knows with Kevin Knox? He was one of the youngest players in the draft last year. They end up with RJ Barrett this year. I mean, there's talent. It's just been a little disappointing with the way they've managed it. I mean, you look at Ntilikina, who was a key cog in the French team that played pretty darn well during FIBA, and he just has gotten nothing with the Knicks. And I think that's really where the concern starts with this team is, yes, they have talent, but is there anyone on this team who can develop it, Jason?
Well, I mean, you have to look at RJ Barrett first and foremost. I mean, a lot of people thought that this was a 3-player draft. with Zion, with John Morant, and then RJ Barrett. The Knicks got themselves a future star. I'm not going to sit here and kill them. I think Barrett, in the right situation, can really develop into a very good NBA player. Excuse me, talking about the Knicks just gets me all choked up. But no, you have a core of Kevin Knox already. You have Dennis Smith Jr. You have Frank Ntilikina, who we don't know what's left really anymore for him. And you have Mitchell Robinson. I mean, the Knicks have a making of a young core. Now it's on Fizdale and his coaching staff to develop this young core and see what they have. I mean, you have the veterans in there. Julius Randle, I think, is going to put up huge numbers, as you said. You have Taj Gibson as that veteran mentor. You have Marcus Morris, who can either light up a stat sheet or give you a headache. But there's a foundation there. The key for the Knicks this upcoming season is they need to let the kids play. They need to let Barrett develop, go through his growing pains, and then see what they have, see who's worth keeping. And if they have a good enough young core, then the next crop of marquee free agents may want to come play at the Guard. I mean, it's up to these kids to make the Knicks cool again, Ben.
I don't see it, Jason. I mean, I don't want to skip to our ceiling and floor, but I think this is one of the two worst teams in the league. I mean, I don't think that anyone besides Randall here is going to be a plus NBA player this season. I think that some of those guys are going to show flashes, but I don't think that they really have it. And I think that when you look at this team, for me, when I look at the ceiling, I don't know if this team can reach 30 games this year. I think they're probably a 28 win team in best case. Last year they were the worst team in the league. They won 17 games, and they did it without tanking in the way that, like, I think people look at the Knicks and say, "Oh, that team was obviously tanking," but it wasn't like they were switching in pieces that were just terrible the way that, say, a Suns team or a Cavs team were. They just didn't have anyone good. Some of these other teams, they put out guys who are just terrible with the intention of being bad. For the Knicks, they didn't necessarily do that. They just kind of played their guys. And a lot of those guys are still on the team. I don't see many plus NBA players, Jason, and it's hard for me to picture this team winning 30 games this year, let alone more than that.
I don't think they're one of the worst two teams in the league. I mean, have you seen the Wizards roster? Have you seen Memphis? Have you seen Charlotte? I do think this is the worst team in the division. Don't get me wrong, but come on. I mean, I think they'll be competitive. I think Wayne Ellington's an underrated piece for them. They have a guy now that can shoot. He's bounced around the league. I mean, they have pieces. Reggie Bullock has shown he can contribute. I think it all needs to mesh well together on the court. But Fizdale is under no mandate to play his veterans. He has to let the kids play and develop. And I do believe the Knicks will be competitive, not enough to make the playoffs. But, I mean, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I see this team. I'd mentioned their ceiling being maybe 28, 29 wins. I think their floor is the worst team in the league, Jason. I mean, I don't know if Mitchell Robinson doesn't take a step forward defensively. I mean, last year he blocked a lot of shots. He was good around the rim, but he also committed just an incalculable number of fouls a game. He jumps at everything. If he doesn't take a step forward, I think this will be the worst defensive team in the league. And offensively, I don't know who's going to really generate offense for them in an efficient manner other than Julius Randle. And my concern is when you look at this team, Jason, where's the shooting in the starting lineup? If Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson start as they're projected to right now, Dennis Smith Jr., RJ Barrett, Marcus Morris, none of these guys are really shooters. The bench has some shooting in Reggie Bullock and Wayne Ellington, but I just think the shooting on this team is going to be a real weakness. The defense is going to be a real weakness, and the playmaking is going to be a real weakness. And when you combine those, I think it's a mixture for one of the worst teams in the league. So I think worst case, this team is the worst team in the league. They could get under a Charlotte or at least compete with them.
I mean, it's weird that I'm the one higher on the Knicks than you are, because I'm going to say their ceiling is 32 wins. They don't have a shot at the playoffs this year, even in the weakened East. Last place in the Atlantic is a foregone conclusion. And my floor for them is about 25 wins. I mean, the Cavs is another team that you could say the Knicks are better than is currently constructed. This team has a way to go. Okay, they have some work to do, and we'll see if they can keep building and getting a nice little young nucleus, as we said earlier, to build around and attract these free agents. I mean, the Knicks did not sign all these power forwards to one-year deals and say, well, Giannis is free next year and Kawhi's got an opt-out in 2021. I mean, just build through the draft and they will come. Okay, the Knicks should be following the Nets model. I know New York's a Knicks town.